I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, May the 15th, brought to you in part by Zactran. Keep more of your hard-earned profits with Zactran. This fast-acting antibiotic is approved for treatment and control of BRD. Remember to observe the 35-day withdrawal period after treatment. For more information, go to Zactran.com or visit with your BI representative. Feeders moving. We've had heavy receipts, but lower turning late in the week here. We've had heavy receipts all week. All your heavy volume sales early in the week were big. Oklahoma City had 11 or 12,000. OKC West over 12,000. All your sales having big runs. They had big runs again on Wednesday and again on Thursday. But on Thursday they turned lower again. And through this COVID-19, we kind of saw your feeder markets hinging on Thursday, whether they'd be back up or back down, but it seemed like it always happened on Thursday. Not so much last week, but now we've returned to hinging on Thursday after the feeders kind of been up all week, and then they turned lower on Thursday, and most all of it because of the sharply lower futures markets on Wednesday. They come back kind of mixed on Thursday, but Monday was down big, Tuesday back up big, Wednesday down big. And it's just taking a toll with the volatility. But we talk about what's going on. Your big news on Thursday was Tyson come out. They've been doing a good job with PR. First off, to kind of announce that we were going to have protein shortages to spur a little bit more of that panic buying. But then after the big gouging and your box beef cutout values going up sharply higher, more than twice what they were before we got into this crisis. Now we've seen Tyson come out and say that they are slashing their beef prices up to 30%. And we did see that mostly just on the products that they make into ground beef, but they did lower them quite a bit, and you see that on your box beef cutout values were sharply lower both on Wednesday and on Thursday's session. But we're taking in a lot of meat, and it's been kind of a hot topic that we are increasing our imports of foreign meat, and none of us really like to see that, especially on the beef side when we've got all these fat cattle that are getting backed up and we can't seem to get them processed because the plants are running well below what they normally do. But we talked about the product coming out of South America. We talked about some even coming from Africa, from places we've never heard of before. But kind of shocking to me, I saw a story on Mexican beef imports, and I wasn't really aware that they were bringing that much in. But Mexican beef imports are up 12%. And they're up 87,000 metric tons year to date. That's 8,000 more than we were the same time a year ago, and that's a little troubling whenever we start thinking about all the fat cattle we got backed up, but we simply cannot get them processed. And we got people over here, especially our fast food drive-through places that have been open through this COVID, that are still wanting cheap ground beef and having a hard time finding it. But the U.S. accounted for 86% of Mexican beef exports last year. We're by far their largest beef export customer. And we get a pretty fair amount of Mexican feeder cattle coming up over here too, but this is just on beef, not on cattle. But that's a little bit shocking there. But let's look at the board on Thursday. June live cattle futures up a quarter at 94.12. August down 142 at $97 even. You look at your out fronts on live cattle, down 95 cents to $1.75. May feeder cattle down $2 even at 125.30. August down 267 at 133.07. You go on out farther out on your feeder cattle contracts, and they were down $1.87 to $2.80. So pretty significant losses on your cattle futures on Thursday. Your fats, we didn't really have much trade to speak of at all on Thursday. But through Wednesday, we had already sold 69,300 head, which is the most that we've seen through this COVID-19. And actually, during typical times, we see a week several times that are around that 70,000. But sold quite a few cattle early in the week, and you think, why in the world are they coming out buying cattle early in the week like that? whenever we've got all these fat cattle backed up, they've got formula contracts that they haven't picked up, and those have been backing up for several weeks here too, and you know, asking people around, and some of the answers that I've heard is some of these plants are not sure how many of their workers are going to show up on a given day. And you know, I've always said, if you've got somebody coming to work for you and you're not for sure whether they're going to show up, that's worse than not having anybody, because if you don't have anybody, you can make plans for that. But if you think somebody's going to show up and then they don't, then you're in a bind. But going out, you know, to their local lots, right around the lots, or right around the packing plant there, and buying those cattle up. But you know, I'm not sure if that argument holds any water or not. There's plenty of these formula contracts or grid cattle that they could pick up, that they need to pick up, that would be close enough, and they could arrange to pick those up short notice just as easy as they could some of these cash cattle. But for the last couple weeks, the cash cattle that they bought, both in the 5 area and nationwide, have been for immediate delivery, 1 to 14 days, and not anything at all quoted for 2 to 4 weeks out. But the only thing we saw confirmed on Thursday was a load of cattle out of Iowa at $180 dress. But on that 69,300 head in your 5 area feeding region, through the first part of the week, they ranged in price on a live basis from 105 to 117, which is quite a bit higher on the bottom side of the range, not so much on the top side, but you know, sure, 5 to, you know, maybe the spots $10 higher on the bottom side of the range. Your dress sales through the early part of the week from 170 to 185, and that was sure higher too, mostly on the bottom side of the range, and mostly $10 there. But box beef cutout values down for the second day of the row, and by far the largest drop we've ever seen on choice cuts on box beef cutouts. But on Thursday afternoon's report, choice cuts were 450.92, down 15.07. And we've been saying we were going to look up one day and our boxes are going to fall out of bed. And they're starting to. I expect next week we'll have days that we see larger drops than that. Your select was actually up 16 cents at 437.40, tightening that choice select spread a little bit at $13.52 on 104 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. And that's the lightest movement we've seen this week so far. We've had pretty good movement the first 3 days of the week. Your slaughter is getting kind of back, approaching normal, but still falling well below what we typically see. But 358,000 through Thursday, that's 35,000 more than last week, but down 127,000 from the same week a year ago. We talked about some of our meat movements. I was looking at a report from IRI Analytics about meat sales, and we were talking about how the sticker shock is just now hitting your retail outlets, even though they've been garnering these huge price increases for the last few weeks on the box beef cutout values, but they're just now making their way into your retail counters, and we're starting to see that. You look at your year-to-date volume sales of meat in your domestic shelves, up 17.1%. That's the volume of sales. So that goes all about your panic buying there, up 17.1%. But your year-to-date dollar sales are up 23.3%. So that goes to show you how much higher it was. But it's even more drastic if you look at the information that's latest available. And this is for the first week of May. Your first week of May volume sales up 37.2% for the first week of May. That come back into that panic buying. And we talked about how Tyson put those full-page ads in some of your big newspapers, and it was kind of whenever they got the shelves filled back up, and people come in there and really bought a lot of product. But look at your dollar sales for the first week of May, up 51.3%. And that tells you that that's about the time we started seeing those big price increases, about the first week of May, and now we're in here the middle of May, and it's very evident of how much gouging has been going on. Let's look at some of your auctions. Do not forget, here on Friday, we've got a Show Me Select replacement heifer sale at Joplin Regional Stockyards Friday here in the evening at 7 o'clock in the evening, and it's going to be on DV Auction. You can view and bid right there through their regular console there in the sale ring. And you know, I worked with that Show Me Select program for a long time. These cattle have all been pelvic measured, scanned, everything about them, and I used to go in there with a group from Missouri Department of Agriculture and screen those heifers, grade those heifers, toss out anything that shouldn't be involved in a premium type replacement heifer sale. It makes me remember my old friend Archie Ladd that we've lost here recently. But Archie Ladd, quite a character, and you guys in southern Missouri, a lot of you know him. He always had heifers in the Show Me Select heifer program, and we would end up cutting some of his heifers out for disposition. He had crossbred heifers, some of them tiger stripes and the likes there, but you know, some of those heifers would come in there and they'd be wilder than shithouse rats. I mean, they would absolutely run you over, and we kind of had a policy there. If they ran away from you, we were okay with their disposition, but if they came after you, we would kick them out, because a lot of people that didn't really know cattle that well were going to be going in there and paying a premium for those heifers. But I tell you what, Archie Ladd and I really got to where we respected each other, and turned out to be a good friend, and I'd heard recently that he had passed away, and I hate to hear that. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. Your real-time index on DV Auction laid on Thursday at 125.64, down 77 cents, and that just goes to show you, even though that's a 7-day moving average, the lower markets on Thursday sure played a role in that. Look at your big sales on Thursday. Winter livestock in Pratt, Kansas, 5,800 head. That is a big run. That's a big run for anybody. It's a big run for Pratt too there, but their markets on feeder cattle were steady to $8 lower, and most of the stiffest losses were on the weights that were the most popular early in the week. And not a week ago in comparison to Pratt's last sale, but early in the week we saw your 700 to 850 pound feeder cattle selling, having the biggest gains. But there at Pratt and Winter Livestock, that's where your stiffest losses were on your 700 to 850 pound feeder cattle. But they still had some pretty impressive quotes there on a few of them. Look at this load that I pulled out of Cattle Market Central. 69 head of 824 pound steers bring 134 1/4. That's pretty darn good. Farmers and Ranchers Livestock out of Salina, Kansas, good run for them. 4,300 head there. A lot of cattle moving, guys. Mostly $2 to $9 lower. You look at these strings that I pulled out of Cattle Market Central there with DV Auction for Farmers and Ranchers Livestock, and you see they were selling cattle right along there, and some big strings. These are mostly load lots. The best one I saw here was 62 head of 918 pound steers, bring 119 1/4. They had a big individual slug there at 3 state stockyards in Falls City, Nebraska. That is extreme southeastern Nebraska, guys, and that's hence the name 3 state stockyards out of Falls City there, run by the Witt boys. And if you know the Witts, you know that numbers do not scare them, and it doesn't bother them to pass a big slug of cattle through the ring there, and they had a big slug on Thursday. The Hermish Land and Cattle Company out of Kelly, Kansas, sold 558 steers through the ring in one whack. They weighed 849 pounds and bring 128.35. But the best quote that I saw anywhere on Thursday was a buddy of mine's cattle at Clarinda, Iowa. Whitney Davis out of Savannah, Missouri. He had his backgrounded steers in Clarinda there, had a load of them, weighed 777 at $142. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.